Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver, and what a show we have for you guys today. That game last night. I'm about to go to bed. I'm doing a live last night with my man Patrick Brown. I know he's watching right now. Shout out to Patrick. Love going on Instagram live with him and talking all things sports. I'm on that game. I'm getting crushed in fantasy by my other guy, Mike Guido. Shout out to Mike. He's killing me in fantasy right now because he's got Dalvin Cook. The Vikings are up 26-0, 29-0 by the time we get off the live. And I'm like, I'm just going to, let's see how these next few minutes play out. And I'm just going to go to bed. And then madness ensues after that. So we'll obviously talk about the Steelers and the Vikings game last night. I figured it'd be a good one. I figured it'd be more of an ugly game. It wasn't pretty. I wouldn't say it was ugly, but it was entertaining. You cannot say it was not entertaining, whether you're a Vikings fan, a Steelers fan, or an NFL fan as a whole. Also going to talk about the Lakers. And they're back down at 500. 13-13. They just lost to the Memphis Grizzlies without John Morant and without Dylan Brooks, and they had their big three healthy. Pretty much the majority of their team, except for two players, are healthy. And at the end of the show, it is Friday, so what do you think I'm going to do? Week 14, Sunday, NFL predictions, including my upset of the week and my new segment, which I debuted this year, If I Were a Bettin Man. My upset of the week, and I said this yesterday, I've never been more confident on any upset of the week more than this one. All year. I cannot wait. Can't wait to make those predictions. But first, got some horrible news that broke last night. So like I said, I was doing that live stream with my man Patrick, and I get off. And I've got the game playing on my computer. I'm in my room. I've got the game on my computer. And so I'm watching the game and I'm checking Twitter, seeing what people are saying about the game and whatnot. And you go to the area where you see what's trending on Twitter. You see Demaryius Thomas. So you go over there and you see a number of tweets saying, "Rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas." You're seeing tweets, please let this DT news not be true. You're thinking, wait, what happened? And so you're scrolling down and you're not seeing any blue check tweets, as I call them, right? You're not seeing any tweets that are, like, oh, there's the source. He's gone. You're like, no, there's no way. It reminded me a little bit of, I can't believe it's been this long, but nearly 2 years ago when we lost Kobe Bryant. And you're going through social media and you're like, there's no way. Not Kobe. And then the reliable sources start to come in, Adrian Wojnarowski and Shams Charania, and you're like, oh man, this is true. And with Demaryius Thomas, you had a number of outstanding reporters in Denver who are contacting family, and one reporter, for instance, even contacted one of DT's college coaches. I think he was his receivers coach at Georgia Tech, which is where he played college football, and he confirmed, yeah, it's true. He's gone. Demaryius Thomas passed away yesterday at the age of 33. He would have been 34 on Christmas Day. And it's just a devastating loss for obviously so many reasons. First of all, someone lost their life. That in itself is tragic. But when you consider the man who we did lose, Demaryius Thomas, a guy who played in the NFL for about a decade, was drafted in 2010 with the 22nd overall pick by the Denver Broncos, 3 picks before the Broncos took Tim Tebow with the 25th overall pick. So they kind of got their quarterback and their receiver in that same draft, in that same round, within 4 picks of one another. But when you consider this guy and what he overcame in his early life, his mother was arrested when he was 10, 11 years old. So having to grow up without, the last part of his childhood without his mother in the home, obviously that's tough. He fought numerous other battles early in his life, but once he got to the NFL, you always know, and I feel like we probably need to change this. And there's no probably, we do need to change this. Is that when someone passes away, we hear more complimentary, we hear more compliments about the human being when they're gone than when they're here to hear those compliments. And so, but with Demaryius Thomas, you're seeing teammates. Peyton Manning put out a statement. Tim Tebow put out a statement. Von Miller and other players. DeMarcus Ware. I mean, just a numerous amount of guys who love this dude. I mean, he always had, if you see any picture of Demaryius Thomas, it's rare to find one in which he's not flashing that big grin, right? I mean, he was always smiling. He was always upbeat, happy, in a good mood. Matter of fact, Tom Brady even posted a selfie with Demaryius Thomas. They were together just as recent as August, just 4 months ago at the Hall of Fame when Peyton Manning got inducted and Tom Brady came to Canton to support Peyton. And Demaryius Thomas went there, obviously, because, that was his quarterback for 4 years with the Broncos. And it's just like, it was so sudden. And so, obviously, trying to dig into this, like, what happened? And as the news has started to pour in, we've learned that he was in a serious car accident a year ago. And that serious car accident left him tragically with a numerous amount of seizures for the rest of his life. He had to, fight those battles for the remainder of his time, in this life. And you just think about the fact that, according to Shannon Sharp, who I was watching on Undisputed this morning, Shannon, obviously a former Bronco, one of the greatest tight ends of all time, he knew Demaryius Thomas well. And he was talking about how, with DT, he had the seizures, and so he didn't want to be alone. Like, he wanted to be around somebody all the time in case he had a medical emergency. And from the reports, it sounds like he was found, he had the most serious of his seizures. I think they found him in the shower. So it's so sad, man, because this was such a good human being. You see the work that he did in the community with in Denver when he was with the Broncos, and obviously he played in Houston, New England after that. But it's heartbreaking, man. It's heartbreaking. So, it's like I tweeted last night, like, call someone if you live with this person, if you're around this person a lot, if you want to call them or text them, just tell them you love them, because you never know when that day is going to be, because not to get too awful personal, but I know about 2.5 weeks before my grandfather passed away, obviously I missed the first part of a couple weeks ago. We went out to have dinner with him. We had some seafood, and it never crossed my mind that, hey, this is gonna be the last time that that I ever see him. So you just want to tell the people in your life that you love them. We're not here forever. That's I think last year, and I talked about this in my podcast. It was my seasons and my year's end podcast on New Year's Eve of 2020. And obviously reviewing everything that happened in that tumultuous year. But to me, I think the one event at the start of the year that really shook me to my core was Kobe's death. Because it's like, dang, Kobe? And now, you see, Demaryius Thomas? This guy is a Pro Bowler. There's people arguing he might be in the Hall of Fame. He very well could be enshrined in Canton, Ohio. He very well is a guy that, we considered in his era, he was a top 4 or 5 receiver. Dude was a beast. Obviously, who could forget the game-winning touchdown in that playoff game against the Steelers back in 2011 when Tebow throws in that pass, the first play of overtime, throws in that pass, and DT takes it 80 yards to the house to win it for the Denver Broncos. It was one of the great playoff moments of recent memory, without a doubt. It's a walk-off play. It's the first play of overtime against, the Broncos were underdogs that Sunday afternoon against the Steelers. It was such a great football moment, a great playoff moment. And obviously getting to win a Super Bowl in Super Bowl 50 with the Broncos when they beat the Carolina Panthers. But I was just as shocked as everybody else. And it's heartbreaking. It's devastating. So my thoughts and prayers go out to Chase Claypool. I'm sorry. I'm going to talk about Chase Claypool later, but my thoughts and prayers go out to Demaryius Thomas's family, and his loved ones, his former teammates, and just everybody, man. Because you can tell, like I said, when someone passes away, especially when they pass away young, the kind of impact that they did leave. And so, like I said, I think what I'm going to take away from this, I feel like we should all try to take something away from something terrible happening. In my case, it's tell the people in our life that we love them. That's what we got to do. No question about it. So Tell your friends, your family. That's what it's all about. That's what life's all about, man. It's about loving people. It's about being there for your brothers and your sisters. That's what life's all about. So, rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas, gone far too soon, at the age of 33. And with that, let's make the difficult transition into the game which Demaryius loved, and that's the game of football. And we had ourselves an unbelievable game last night. You had the Minnesota Vikings, you had the Pittsburgh Steelers in what was a game that I called, one of the bigger ones in the NFL season because of the playoff implications. And it's rare that we have a game between two teams on the level that these two are, somewhat evenly matched, from opposite conferences where the stakes are unbelievably high. Usually it's interconference matchups that we talk about. Well, in this case, you got the Vikings who just lost to the winless Lions. And so they're sitting there at 5-7. And they're like, we got to win. If we don't win, our season's over. Our season's a wrap. And I mean, we're not gonna win out. We're not gonna beat Green Bay. Obviously, they don't have that mindset. They need that mindset that they're gonna win, obviously. But they're gonna be like, dang, our schedule down the stretch, we're 5-8. We've lost 3 straight games, or 3 straight games had they lost last night. Like it was do or die for the Minnesota Vikings. And so when you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers as well, you're like, okay, they're sitting there at 6-5-1. They won a huge game over the Baltimore Ravens, that comeback win at Heinz Field on Sunday. Big Ben played great in the fourth quarter, something that would show up last night, obviously. And they had to win this game because the AFC, the middle of the AFC, boy, is it crowded. You got, just in the division, you've got Cincinnati and you got Cleveland. You got the Steelers sitting there. You've got, obviously, outside the division, you got the Chargers and the Raiders. You've got the Miami Dolphins, who are on a 5-game winning streak and look like they have a pulse all of a sudden. You've got the Buffalo Bills. So it is as crowded as it can possibly be. So this was a must-win game for both squads. And Minnesota jumps out to that 29-0 lead. Dalvin Cook is killing me in fantasy. He's killing the Steelers' defense. He's killing whoever had the Steelers' defense in fantasy. I mean, he's running all over the place. And all of a sudden, Minnesota in the second half just starts throwing the ball over the place. And they got a 29-0 lead with 2 minutes left in the third quarter. The game's over. It would have taken the largest regular season comeback in NFL regular season history for the Steelers to pull it off and get the win, which almost happened, unbelievably. Obviously, they get that long drive. They make it 29-7. I was like, okay, that's good for Pittsburgh. They're not going to get shut out, whatever. And they get another stop, and then they score again. And it's 29-14, and you're like, okay, hold on. This game isn't over yet. And then Pittsburgh goes down, gets a touchdown, goes for 2 inexplicably, which I don't know. Listen, I love Mike Tomlin, and I'm going to talk about him in just a second too. I don't know what he's doing going for 2 in that situation. If you're down 15, if you score a touchdown, you're down 15, you score, now you're down 9. You kick the extra point, you take the sure thing. Now you're down 8. You're guaranteed to be down only 1 score, whereas a 2-point conversion, the likelihood of you getting it in the end zone is much less than that of an extra point, obviously. Now, I know, obviously, 6 years ago, they changed the extra point to a 33-yarder instead of whatever it was, like an 18, 19-yarder. But you still got a better shot of making that as opposed to a 2-point conversion from the 2 or 3 yard line. And so that was a questionable call at best. So Minnesota scores again. Kirk Cousins hits the long ball, and you're like, good night. They're up 16. It's 36-20. This game is over. Nope. I mean, Minnesota gets the touchdown. Pittsburgh punts, and Kirk Cousins, here he goes again, guys. In primetime games, Kirk Cousins in primetime, it rears its ugly head. Kirk throws a pick. Picked by Witherspoon. He returns it all the way down to the Minnesota 21-yard line. They're like, oh my goodness, Pittsburgh won't go
They
away. score the touchdown. They get the 2. All of a sudden, we've got a 1-score game. Pittsburgh gets the stop. They get the ball back. They're down 8. Now they got an opportunity to tie the game and go to overtime, where they would absolutely have all the momentum in the world. And then chaos ensues. Such was last night, obviously. Because you're talking about a 12-play drive that they took it 84 yards. They almost got in the end zone. It was a great punt that pinned the Steelers back. They go all the way down the field. They're moving the ball. They got a 4th down and 1. As I have a comment here before I show the 4th and 1. John says wasn't on Kurt. That's fair. That's fair, but he did miss some throws. I thought he missed, who was it? Justin Jefferson. I thought he missed him on a deep ball earlier in the game. He threw it a little bit too far. If Jefferson catches that, well, that's another touchdown on the board for the Vikings. And we may not even be having a conversation about the Steelers getting back in the game. So that's kind of where I didn't think Kirk played particularly well before I show this 4th down. 216, completion percentage under 50, 2 picks and a passer rating of 63, a QBR of 22. I didn't think Kirk played that well. It was mostly on Dalvin Cook. That's the biggest reason the Vikings won this game. John says guy got a taunting penalty and that changed the game. No question. It was crazy. I mean, just nuts. So we get to 4th down and 1. We got a 4th down and 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. This is a do or die situation. They need to get the 1st down, and they need to stop the clock as quickly as possible. If they can get out of bounds, great, because remember, at this point in the game, they got no timeouts. We're talking at this stage in the game, how much time's left? They got 42 seconds, okay, and the clock's running right now. So they get closer, clock's running, 42 seconds, and Ben hits Claypool down to the Minnesota 34 to keep the game going. And I'll show you the play right here. I'll give somewhat of a play-by-play. So there's Ben completing it to Claypool. Claypool gets tackled. And he signals 1st down as the clock is moving. The clock is running right now. They lose the football. Trey Turner's trying to get the ball from him to get the ball to the line so they can spike it and stop the clock. And Chase Claypool's yelling at him. Look at him. He's yelling at him. He's frustrated with a guy who's just trying to get to the line to get a playoff. Listen, you know me. I love celebrations. I think this new taunting rule is bogus. I hate it. But you got to be aware of a situation in the game. You cost your team a good 10, 12 seconds there, and maybe they get a couple more shots at the end zone. At least one. Obviously, as we all know, after that, they get the ball closer and Ben threw a good pass to Fremont, and he couldn't make the catch. It was broken up at the last second. And I thought Ben was great in the 4th quarter, but there seems to be somewhat of a trend with the Steelers here. They're falling behind these games. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, they got crushed by the Cincinnati Bengals. 41-10, I think, was the final score. Then they fall down 10-0 against the Ravens. Looked like they're left for dead. And then they come back and win that game miraculously. And then yesterday, they're down 29-0. And they come back close to sending it to overtime. So it's a credit to the Steelers' resiliency and toughness. Troy Aikman talked about in the game. He said, this is why you keep playing. Troy said, you keep playing. You keep going. The late great Yogi Berra once said, it ain't over till it's over. Well, the Steelers had that mentality last night, to their credit. But this has, and I love Mike Tomlin. I've defended Mike Tomlin over and over and over. I railed against the media member who asked that question. Hey, you think about going to USC? Mike Tomlin's like, you kidding me? I've got the best job. And like, that was the best way Mike Tomlin could have put it without cursing, pretty much. It's like, I got the best job in sports in regards to coaching. The Steelers don't fire coaches. They've had 3 coaches in 53 years. They're great. John says Jimmy G to Pitt, he should be considered. I don't think the Steelers would do it, and here's why. He's kind of already what they've got. Jimmy G, like Big Ben at this, and listen, Ben in his prime, much better than Jimmy G in his prime. But right now in 2021, they're kind of the same quarterback. Neither quarterback's very mobile, right? You got Jimmy G, who struggles to stay healthy. So does Ben. You've got obviously the situation with, does he mesh well with the receivers? And I don't know. I think they need to get a dynamic quarterback, a Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. To me, those two guys fit better than Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't think it would happen. Like I said, to Ben's credit, he played well when it mattered most last night. And I thought he delivered a beautiful throw on that last play, giving the Steelers one last opportunity. He did. But I think at the end of the day, you just got to look at they're down a lot in these games. And also for Mike Tomlin, and I love this guy. And anytime he's been on the proverbial hot seat, I've always come out and said, what are you talking about? He's never had a losing season. Why would you fire this guy? He's built an amazing culture there. But this is now 3 receivers in Pittsburgh that have had issues with discipline or being aware of game situation. Quote unquote diva receivers, right? We all know about Antonio Brown. That speaks for itself right there. You got Juju. Juju with the TikTok dances, dancing on other teams' logos, and about to talk about the Cowboys later, giving bulletin board material to other teams. Now you got Chase Claypool, who's signaling first down. The clock is running, dude. Get to the line. Everybody's talked about Larry Fitzgerald. Like, Larry Fitzgerald's famous for this, right? The former great receiver. He hasn't retired yet. But he's a free agent right now. But Larry Fitzgerald is going to be in Canton, Ohio, first ballot Hall of Famer. And Fitz, if he caught a pass inbounds, clock's running, and the Cardinals need to get to the line and run a play, he's catching that pass. He gets tackled. He is sprinting to the ref to hand him the ball so they can spot it and stop the clock. I don't know what Chase Claypool's doing there. For the life of me, I don't know what he's doing. But what a game last night. Goodness. How about that to kick off Week 14? You got 2 desperate teams. Pittsburgh's playoff chances took a big shot last night. Minnesota's, hey, they're still alive. But I'm just going to go and come out and say it right now. I think Pittsburgh's done. Pittsburgh, your playoff hopes, it's over. The Steelers, over their last 4 games of the 2021 season, have the toughest schedule in the league. The toughest closing schedule because they got to play the Titans next week. They can win that game, obviously. They'll have an extra few days to prepare. My gut tells me they'll win that game. But Tennessee's no slouch now. After that, they got to go to Arrowhead. That defense now that offense is struggling big time. But Kansas City's defense, Chris Jones, is unblockable, giving a lot of offenses some problems around the league. Got to come home to play the Cleveland Browns. That'll be probably a de facto playoff game. By that point, both teams will probably be needing some help to get in, and that'll be a dogfight for 60 minutes to try and see who can keep their playoff hopes alive. And then they finish at the Ravens. Man, I mean that is those are 4 teams that are, we consider the upper echelon. At their best, they're the upper echelon of teams in the NFL, and Pittsburgh's got to play them 4 straight weeks. So they're going to need these extra few days, sort of this mini bye, to heal up. But man, it is not looking good for the Steelers. On the other hand, you got the Vikings. My gut tells me they won't get in because their closing schedule isn't exactly much easier, because they've got the Bears twice in the last 2 into the last 4 weeks. So I'll give them that. But they got home against the Rams, and they got to go to Lambeau Field. And Kirk Cousins, again, primetime Kirk, it ain't good. And at Lambeau Field, yeah, they're not beating Aaron Rodgers at Lambeau. No way. No way that's happening. So I don't think either of these teams are getting in the playoffs, but I think Pittsburgh's chances are way less than Minnesota's. Because the thing, and I've talked about this for a couple weeks now, AFC, NFC. The top of the NFC is way better than the top of the AFC. Way better. The Super Bowl champion this year is coming out of the NFC. Whether it's Green Bay, whether it's Tom and the Bucks, or it's the Cardinals or the Cowboys or the Rams, the champion's coming out of the NFC. The Super Bowl will be the NFC championship game. At AFC, they can't beat one of these teams in the Super Bowl. Okay, these teams are a different level. But when you look at the middle of the AFC and the middle of the NFC, it ain't even close. AFC's got that by a mile. And so that's why I think what makes it tougher on the Steelers and easier for the Vikings. And that's why it was such a big win for Minnesota last night. But that kind of, it kind of perfectly demonstrated what these two teams are. Minnesota's, their quarterback struggles in prime time, and they play a lot of close games. I mean, like every single game, it seems like they have been close. If they win a lot of these games, they're in play to win the division. They don't have to worry about missing the playoffs or not. They're in play to win the division. And then for the Steelers, it's another slow start in another situation, another example of an undisciplined wide receiver. It's crazy. I think last night perfectly showed what these two teams are. But it was a crazy football game, no question about it. To the NBA, before I go to my Week 14 picks, the Lakers lost again. There's only 3 games last night. That was the number one game that people were paying attention to. The Lakers lost 108-95 to the Memphis Grizzlies, who are without Ja Morant, which, to give Memphis credit, they're playing really well without Ja. It's not to say they're better without Ja. Of course they're not. But, hey, they're playing good team basketball. Taylor Jenkins, I think, is an excellent head coach. And they're also missing Dillon Brooks, who is their best defensive player. So you combine all this, and Memphis is playing good basketball. So none of what I'm about to say is to discredit Memphis. But I said on yesterday's show the Lakers are going to avoid the play-in, and I still believe that. As currently constructed, I'm starting to wonder if this team can even win a playoff series. Seriously. They're not going to have home court advantage in the first round. Okay, that's going to be Golden State, Phoenix, obviously. Probably Utah. And then you look at probably Denver's going to get hot once they get Jamal Murray back, and Nikola Jokic is playing great basketball. Not to mention you got the Grizzlies who are playing well, and the Clippers. And if Luka can finally get in shape, maybe Dallas. What's there to be optimistic about with the Lakers? What am I supposed to look at through these first 26 games and say, you know what? There's something there that could... There's nothing. Yes, LeBron had a triple-double last night, but he had 5 turnovers. Westbrook had 6 turnovers and scored 9 points. Anthony Davis had the quietest 20 points I've ever seen. This team's old. I hate to keep beating the dead horse, but it's old. Oldest roster of all time, literally. I'm not over-exaggerating there. It is literally the oldest roster in NBA history. Frank Vogel struggles with rotations. They couldn't get stops in the second half. This is who the Lakers are. So the fact that this sort of materialized last night wasn't in the slightest bit shocked. This is a 500 basketball team. The pieces don't fit. Don't give me Trevor Ariza is going to come back. I told you before the season, Trevor Ariza is not going to be a big contributor for this team. The same for Kendrick Nunn. Kendrick Nunn did nothing for the Miami Heat last year. Trevor Ariza, I use the example 3 years ago in the biggest game of his life post Lakers, post that first stint with the Lakers, 2018 Game 7 with the Houston Rockets against my Golden State Warriors, and Trevor Ariza scored just as many points as you and I did. Goose egg. So 3 years later, I'm supposed to think he's going to be a better defender and a better shooter and a better scorer than he was back then? He hasn't played a game yet. He's older. He was with Miami last year. Didn't do much. So when I sit back and look at this Lakers team, as Bill Parcells once said, you are what your record says you are. This is a 500 basketball team as it stands right now. When you look at the Western Conference standings, they sit at the 6th seed. They're just outside the play-in. They're tied with Dallas, but they're above Dallas because they played more games and they have more wins than the Mavericks. But if you would have told me December 10th, 2021, that the LA Lakers would have comparable starts to the Dallas Mavericks, the Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Sacramento Kings, I would not have been shocked. I'm sorry. I said this is a 5 seed. They win a playoff series if they get the right matchup. I think if they play Denver, Denver gives them a run for the money. But ultimately, I trust LeBron to take that series home. But they're going home in the second round. Now I'm starting to worry about if they're going home in the first round. This is not forget championship team. I don't even know if this is a playoff series winning team. That's just reality. They're bad defensively. They're old. Their best player is old and injury prone, as great as LeBron is. Their second best player, you don't know what you're getting from Anthony Davis in regards to health, in regards to his play on the court, in regards to his mentality. And your third best player, his mentality is always consistent. But he doesn't fit, A, and B, you don't trust him in the playoffs. He's won 8 playoff games. 8! since KD dumped him in OKC. He's won one playoff series. And then the rest of the roster, it's just a clumped up mess. LeBron's yelled at Malik Monk. I mean, it is a train wreck right now. And listen, I'm sorry, Laker Nation, but if you're trying to convince me that this team can even compete, listen, today, Golden State and Phoenix sweep the Lakers. Clean sweep. 1-2-3-4-0. Goodbye. Go home. Fly to Cancun. So the start doesn't shock me. This is about what I thought they'd be. This is about, I mean, they've had games this season where it's like, dang, that was impressive. LeBron's 37, I think it might have been 39 points against the Pacers the day before Thanksgiving. I was like, yep, that's him. That's the king. Westbrook's had some big nights, but they've blown leads against OKC, and they're getting pushed around by the Minnesota Timberwolves, who are terrible defensively. They had to come back on the Sacramento Kings, for crying out loud. Sacramento, who just fired their head coach, as my man Barry Grant Jr., All Even Podcast, who's a Lakers fan, says NBA Siberia. Well, it took a massive comeback led by Russell Westbrook to beat NBA Siberia. I'm not surprised by this start. I'm not. And unless they make some massive deals, some earth-shattering deals at the trade deadline, you can forget about you championship. That's it's like was it Jim Mora playoffs? We're talking playoffs. We just want to win a game. You just want to win a playoff series if you're the Lakers. And I'm not real sure that's a reality right now. That's a realistic possibility. It's an average team. Record says they're average. They're playing the court is average. Their coach is average. The roster's old. Did I mention they're old? I mean, that's what the Lakers are. Like I've said over and over and over and over. This ain't 2K. This team ain't 2K, trust me, I played the Lakers in NBA 2K. It's no fun. Okay, and I'm not very good at NBA 2K. I'll be the first to admit it. But it ain't fun. Westbrook's dunking on you, and AD is unstoppable down low. It's funny, even the video game creators of 2K are like, hey, AD, get your butt in the block. Back somebody down, right? You've got the body, you've got the strength. You just don't have the mentality. A video game can't simulate where a person's instinct is, where that killer instinct is. It can't really do that. And even LeBron, the guy said is the only thing I like about this Lakers team. He's going to be 37 in 20 days. He's gotten hurt this year. Abdominal issues. So, that's where the Lakers are at. They're losing on the road to a Memphis team. And listen, I said Memphis going into this season, I said forget playing. This team could actually win a playoff series. Before the season started, I said Memphis would lose close to Utah. They'd rematch Utah in the first round, and the Jazz would win in 7 games. Just because I trust the Jazz's playoff experience a little bit more than Memphis's. But listen, I loved, from what I saw from the Grizzlies in their 2 play-in matchups, the second one being against my Warriors, and what I saw from John Morant in the playoffs, I'm like, I like this team. They're keeping their pieces together. Taylor Jenkins has proven he can coach in this league. I like Memphis. I like the direction they're going. And so maybe I should be giving the Grizzlies more credit for how they played against the Lakers. The thing about Memphis, they fit better. They have a team chemistry, a team culture. There's a reason, guys. Remember, this feels like a distant memory now that we have the gold medal. But remember at the beginning of the Olympics, remember during the exhibition games, we played, I don't remember who it was. Oh gosh, it wasn't Nicaragua. It was, I'm trying to remember. It was a country in Africa that the U.S. team played. The country isn't coming to mind. But they played them, our Team USA team, and they lost. You're like, oh, this, KD and Dame, and oh man, these teams just ain't as good as the old teams. I'm like, okay, no, there's 3 factors to this. Number 1, the NBA is more of a global league than it's ever been. And number 2, you just threw this team together. They've never played together. Whereas Australia, France, Spain, Argentina, remember Manu Ginobili led Argentina to that gold medal in 2004? They played together since they were teenagers. So, yeah, they're going to have a better feel for how one another plays. Not our team. We have won multiple gold medals on sheer talent. And this year, that talent was led mostly by Kevin Durant. Like I said, like if you're playing 2K and you put Team USA and Team France and Spain and all these countries, we smoke them. But in real life basketball, when you do, and I hope I'm not sounding like an old head. I'm 18 years old. Give me a break. But if you're putting these teams together and you got guys who've never played together before, you got to give them time. They got to get a feel for one another. Memphis has already got that. Lakers don't. And it's hard to get a feel with playing with somebody if you don't fit. It matters. That's how it goes. So, it's week 14 in the NFL season. That's crazy. It's hard to believe. I can't believe how fast the season's gone by. I know I say that every year and I say that every week, but it really is kind of wild. But we're mid-December. We're a couple weeks away from Christmas. It is the holiday season. It is a time to be giving and holly and jolly and all that, right? And so for a lot of teams, save for, 6, 7, 8, outside of that group, those group of teams, everybody's happy because everybody's got a shot to make the playoffs. In a select few teams, they have their goals set a little further than that. So just about every game this week matters for the playoff chase. So that's what I love. Just this whole playoff chase. I love it. I love the atmosphere. I love the competitive spirit. But here we go. It is week 14 of the season. Let's get the predictions started right now, starting with the Atlanta Falcons and the Carolina Panthers. As it stands right now, the Panthers at home are favored in this game, -2.5. Now, Carolina's coming off a bye. Their last game, they got mollywopped by the Miami Dolphins. Cam Newton played maybe the worst game he's ever played in his football life. Forget NFL, but in his football life. You got the Atlanta Falcons, who, to their credit, they battled Tampa Bay last week. They battled Tampa Bay at home last week, but ultimately it was just a difference in talent. It was a difference in game situations, and that's why the Tampa Bay Buccaneers came away with the win. But I thought Atlanta played well enough, at least through 3 quarters, to maybe steal that game. Obviously, they had the pick 6 before the end of the half, so credit to Atlanta. They woke up and they were ready to play their division rival Buccaneers. Well, they got to go on the road to a division rival Carolina. And you got 2 teams that are both 5-7, both trying to get into the playoffs, obviously. And so I think Carolina covering is not an option. I don't think it happens. But coming off a bye, fresh legs, there's a sense of urgency for this team with Cam Newton. Christian McCaffrey's out. I think it is neck and neck. I'm going to take Carolina to win this game 29-27 on a walk-off field goal. I mean, we know Atlanta struggles in close games. That's been evident for years now. But I think when you look at this Atlanta defense, they don't cause this Carolina offense near the problems that Miami defense can. And so I think the Panthers have their way, even without Christian McCaffrey. Similar to what I said about the Bills last week. Remember, like I said, Tre'Davious White's out for the year. That's a massive loss for the Bills. But it won't be apparent against New England. Well, I think that's the same situation here. Atlanta's got a bad run defense, so Christian McCaffrey's injury is not going to be quite as apparent against this bad defense as it will be against other defenses down the road. Chuba Hubbard will have a big game. Cam Newton will play well enough, and the Panthers will win this game 29-27. Let's go to now the Baltimore Ravens taking on the Cleveland Browns. It's the second straight game that the Browns have played the Ravens. They lost that game, obviously, a couple weeks ago. It was probably the worst primetime game of the season, unless you like defense a lot. But Lamar Jackson threw 4 picks. Baker Mayfield was bad. It was not a game for great quarterback play whatsoever. So the game's in Cleveland now. The Browns have had a week to prepare. In the case of the Ravens, last week they go in with the number 1 seed. They come out tied for basically the 2, 3, 4 seed. So this is a big game for Baltimore, obviously to try and pull away in the division, but also for seeding down the road. For Cleveland, it's desperation time. They have to win this game in order to keep themselves alive. Because like I said, the wild card race in the AFC, it's crowded right now. There's a lot of people trying to get in. There's only 3 spots in that wild card chase. Cleveland's playoff hopes are dead. Or not playoff hopes, I'm sorry, division hopes are dead. But I think coming off a tough loss or a few tough losses, Baker's not totally healthy. I still think these injuries are going to catch up to him down the road. Like John Joe says, Cleveland must win. Absolutely. This is a must win. They lose, they're done. They're pretty much done because remember, they got to play the Packers later on the road on Christmas Day. That's going to be a real tough one to win. I think it is close and similar to the Panthers and the Falcons. I think this one ends on a walk-off field goal by Justin Tucker, which means I, of course, have the Baltimore Ravens winning this game simply because I trust Lamar Jackson more than I trust Baker Mayfield. Yes, this Ravens secondary is just in shambles right now. Marlon Humphrey's now out for the year. Obviously, Marcus Peters got hurt before the season even began, before the Ravens played a snap. As John Jones says, Baltimore don't have no cornerbacks. Just like I pointed out there, you're absolutely right. Their secondary is just totally falling apart physically. Again, I think Baker plays efficient. I think he plays well. But both running games are good. But Lamar Jackson adds that level of that level of dynamic to the Ravens offense that Baker Mayfield simply does not. Plus, Lamar's in a slump. Lamar Jackson's in kind of a slump right now. He's not playing good football, and so he realizes the must-win mentality that the Browns are going to have on the other side, and ultimately I trust the Ravens more than I trust the Browns. So I got the Ravens winning this one and unofficially ending the Browns' playoff hopes. Let's go to a game that I don't want to spend too much time on because you know my rule on these predictions. I don't spend time on bad teams, or at least a lot of time on bad teams. Talking about the Jaguars and the Titans. Jaguars are tanking at this point. Tennessee coming off a bye. Derrick Henry's going to come back in a few weeks. Ryan Tannehill, the whole squad, they've had time to rest. They were falling apart a little bit before their bye week. They're getting a little healthier now. Tennessee wins this game fairly easily in a game in which they are favored at -8.5. They cover the spread and win by 10. By the way, the spread for that Browns-Ravens game was Browns -3, so it was a pick'em. So they won't cover the spread, and they will lose. Let's go to now. I'm dreading this game. My Dallas Cowboys taking on the Washington football team. Now, 48 hours ago, I felt great about this game. Great. Felt amazing. Got a mini bye. Coming off a win against the Saints, the defense played great. Now they're getting even more reinforcements with Neville Gallimore, who I love, and Randy Gregory, who's had a great season before he got hurt. You're getting even more reinforcements to that defensive line to pressure Taylor Heineke, and Trayvon Diggs got another pick last week, and there's a lot of reasons to be excited. And then this happened.
We're going to win this game. I'm confident in that, and just the prep that's going into it. But more importantly, we want to improve too along the way. So I think that's all part about what the challenge of December football gives you.
That we're going to win this game. I'm confident in that. Do you think that could be taken as bulletin board material?
I mean, what am I supposed to say? Yeah. I fully expect to win every game I've ever competed in. I mean, that's what sports is all about. That's what the NFL. Trust me, I understand how hard it is. They're working hard. We're working hard. But yeah, we're clearly planning on going to Washington to win the game. I mean, there's no doubt about that.
And my man Dak Prescott doubled down on it too. The man of which I'm wearing the hat representing Dak Prescott is my guy, but Dak doubled down on it. There's too much noise with this team. The Cowboys are favored -4.5. Ironically, the spread has gone up since Mike McCarthy's comments. You know my rule in the show. Anytime that a coach guarantees a win, it almost always come back to bite him in the you-know-where. It always does. I am leaning on this in this game. And I've said it all season. There is something, honest to God, I'm the most objective Cowboy fan on earth. I'll tell you when the Cowboys are stinking it up. Okay? There's a different feel about this team. I'm not going Super Bowl. I'm not. But there is a different feel from this team than the ones in years past with Tony Romo, where they get off these big starts and they collapse in December. With a 1-0 in December, undermanned, this is going to be a game Sunday in which Dak Prescott's going to have to lead them to the win. This is going to be a Dak Prescott game because Zeke said he has a tear in his knee and Tony Pollard has a torn plantar fascia. So both running backs, and Tony Pollard may not even play Sunday, both running backs are beat up. So with a healthy receiving core, obviously Noah Brown's out, but for the most part, a healthy receiving core. You got Amari Cooper, who's hopefully recovered from his COVID symptoms by now. You've got CeeDee Lamb, obviously, coming back from the concussion last week and making some big plays. You got Michael Gallup, who's been back in the fold for a few weeks now. You got Cedric Wilson. Dak's got weapons, not to even mention Dalton Schultz. Dak's got his weapons ready to go. And I think ultimately, do I trust Mike McCarthy? Not in the slightest. Do I trust the running game? Not really. The defense, they're starting to win me over a little bit. Certainly Micah Parsons and Trayvon Diggs have already done that. Also, Randy Gregory has. But the rest of it, I'm like, I don't know. But if it comes down to Dak Prescott versus Taylor Heineke, you know who I'm going with every frickin' day. Cowboys win this game 27-14. If Washington wins, I won't be shocked at all. I mean, after what Mike McCarthy said in Washington, which you heard what Jonathan Allen said, they've clearly taken this as an insult, as a slight. I think it's close for a while, but Dak throws a party in the fourth quarter. I could see this being like a 14-13 Washington lead going into the fourth, but Dak leads the Cowboys down the field for back-to-back touchdown drives to put it out of reach, both in this game and basically in this division. Because if the Cowboys win, they're up 3 games in the division with 4 left. It's a wrap. If Washington wins, it's a whole different set of circumstances because they're down a game. Now they're down 1 game to Dallas, and they play in 2 weeks the day after Christmas. So this is a huge division matchup, huge division rivalry. I'll take the Cowboys because I'll take Dak 27-14. I'll take Dak any day of the week over Taylor Heineke. Moving on after that, soliloquy. You got the New Orleans Saints against the New York Jets. Now, look, the Saints are not going to make the playoffs in the NFC. If Taysom Hill's who you're rolling with the rest of the season, you're screwed. If you want to give it back to Trevor Siemian, nice. You're also screwed in that regard. If you want to sign Phillip Rivers, then sign Phillip Rivers. I don't care, but this team's dead because you've got a deficiency at quarterback. Alvin Kamara is still beat up. A defense that is also beat up. An offensive line that's beat up. So at some point, next man up, there's only so many bodies that you have to put out there on the field in December in the National Football League. But going to New York, I think it's, in this game, I think the Saints are favored -5.5. When I look at this one, it ultimately comes down to the fact I don't trust Zach Wilson. There was a lot of picks. I've only seen 1 game from Zach Wilson where I'm like, okay, yeah, that could win. That's the Jets win over the Tennessee Titans. Outside of that, it's been a lot of bad. What have I always said about the Jets? The New York Jets, where young quarterbacks' dreams go to die. I think the Jets' hopes of winning will die on Sunday. Once again, this time at the hands of the New Orleans Saints. NOLA wins this one 31-20. They cover the spread. Taysom Hill, I think, will have a party as sort of their gadget guy. They'll use him in much less of a quarterback type of role. They won't have to have him, come back on them, and the Jets will fall to 3-10. Will they fall to 3-10? Yes, they will, going into their next game next week. So the Saints win this game. Let's go to now our upset of the week. Pull it up. Here we go. Upset of the week. Because you've got a team, you've got another division rivalry featuring a team in the Kansas City Chiefs who are really feeling themselves right now, aren't they? They're feeling themselves. They won 5 straight, and all the Chiefs fans out there are saying, look at us, we're back. And I'm here to tell you, no, you're not. You ain't back. Your defense is playing lights out. Chris Jones... Listen, TJ Watt's going to win Defensive Player of the Year as he should, but Chris Jones is at least giving himself to be nominated for the award, to be in the running for the award. You look at guys like Snead, who's slowly emerging as one of the better corners in the NFL. Honey Badger Tyrann Mathieu fighting through a lot of injuries right now, but he's playing well. They're healthy on that side of the football. It's the best defense the Chiefs have had in the Patrick Mahomes era. The problem is the offense is the worst it's been in the Patrick Mahomes era. They can't run the football. Mahomes has been inconsistent. He barely completed 50% of his passes last week against Denver. Has Andy Reid lost his fastball? I don't think so. Tyreek Hill is struggling. Travis Kelce's not getting the football. It's kind of a mess right now offensively for Kansas City. As for the Raiders, they're looking at it as, okay, we stole one in Dallas on Thanksgiving Day. Then we come back 10 days later against the Washington football team, and some could say we got robbed on a missed pass interference call. The Raiders are going to come into this game desperate in a crowded AFC wildcard chase, as I've said over and over and over. The Chiefs are favored -10, which I think is absurd. Absolutely, positively absurd. Carl Nessib's out. Darren Waller's out. I get that. But I trust Derek Carr. Derek Carr, in the biggest of games, shows up. He's still got Hunter Renfrow. Okay, he's still got Zay Jones, who was the guy who was interfered with, right in that last play against the Washington football team. They've still got Josh Jacobs. They've got playmakers in this football team. And so with that, the most confident I have ever been in an upset of the week, give me the Las Vegas Raiders. 30-27 over the Kansas City Chiefs, ending their 5-game winning streak, going to 7-6, keeping their playoff hopes alive. I had the Raiders winning 4 games this year. I was dead wrong on that. They've dealt with a lot of crap this year with John Gruden and Henry Ruggs and Damon Arnett and all that. They're sitting there at 6-6. They got a chance. Remember, Kansas City lost 2 games last year. The second of those was a meaningless one where they sat all their starters because they had their playoff spot locked up. So Kansas City's only meaningful loss last year in the regular season came to Las Vegas Raiders. I think it will happen for a second straight year. History will repeat itself, and the Raiders will win this game 30-27. That is my upset of the week. Looking down the list, you've got the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Houston Texans. Obviously, mathematically, the Seattle Seahawks still got a shot. And I don't think they'll have any issues. Go and put up the score right now. I don't think they'll have a ton of issues against the Houston Texans just because it's a sleeper game. Sleeper not in the fact that you should watch it. Sleeper in the fact that it may put you to sleep. I just decided to put a weird score, 31-11. Just a weird score, just for good measure. It's December. It's the NFL. We've had a lot of craziness in 2021 this season, so might as well put a weird score up there. Seattle will win this game. They won't have any issues with Houston. They just announced today, David Culley, who is the head coach of the Texans, he just announced today that Davis Mills, the rookie, will start the rest of the season. So you won't have that veteran, Tyrod Taylor, in there leading the Texans. And so I think Seattle wins this game. Russell Wilson plays well, and that's pretty much how that's going to go down. Looking down the list, you've got the Detroit Lions and the Denver Broncos. Now, Denver has announced that they will honor Demaryius Sanders. Of course, that's a surprise to no one. He's such a great guy in that organization. You look at the Detroit Lions, on the other hand, they won. They beat the Minnesota Vikings. I don't have to ever talk about again in the history of the world. I don't ever have to talk about Jared Goff being and whatever he is without Sean McVay. He's now got one. So the monkey is off his back. It's, get the Steve Young monkey off your back, right? So this is obviously huge. This is huge for Denver because they also are in the AFC wildcard chase. They're at home. Detroit's a bad team. There's a reason Detroit's won one game. They played some close ones. I get it. And I do think they give Denver a run for the money. Denver's in this game favored -10. Well, Detroit's going to play loose now because they're not going to make the playoffs. They know that. I'm not necessarily sure if the organization is tanking. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. But they're coming in with the mindset of, hey, we've got the monkey off our back. We've won our first game. Let's just go out there and play football. So I think this is going to be closer than people expect, but I will take the Broncos to win this game 24-21. And I think it'll actually be a surprisingly entertaining game, believe it or not. I think it'll come down to the wire, and Teddy Bridgewater will ultimately get it done for Denver, and they'll get a stop on Jared Goff and the Lions offense at the end of it and win this game at home and keep their playoff hopes very much alive. They win 24-21. Staying on the West Coast, you got in that division, the AFC West, you got the LA Chargers at home hosting the New York Giants. This is another spread in which a team is favored by -10. Of course, that would be the Chargers. Daniel Jones is out for a second straight week, which means Mike Glennon will make another start, and that has not exactly gone so well for the Giants. Giants fans are hard on Daniel Jones, and they have every reason to be. But, man, Mike Glennon, you think Daniel Jones is bad? Watch Mike Glennon. How many games he won the NFL? 5? He's been in this league forever. It's like he's won 5 games his whole career. This can be a long day for the Giants offense. I do think their defense does keep them in it, however. Like, it's a great Chargers offense, but maybe the Chargers don't take the Giants so seriously. But I think once it's all said and done, LA gets the victory. They win this game. They're right at the spread. I think they win by 10. They're favored by 10. That's about where I've got it. They win 26-16. 16 points, honestly, might even be generous for this Giants offense, the way they're playing. Goodness, all that talent, but you don't have the quarterback to lead them all the way through. Looking down the list, you've got the San Francisco 49ers taking on the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, San Francisco is sitting there at 6-6, a crushing loss last week at the hands of the Seattle Seahawks. And you got Deebo Samuel, who's still out. Jimmy Garoppolo, you don't know what you're getting on a game-to-game basis. If you can give him a running game, you got the best of Jimmy G. If you're not, you don't know. Well, this Cincinnati Bengals defense has been decent against the run. On the other hand, for Cincinnati, Joe Burrow, I feel like this has not been talked about much. Guy's thrown 14 picks. He's turned the ball over a lot. I bought into Joe Burrow, but dang, that's way too many interceptions. But this being in Cincinnati, you're talking about two teams. This is very similar in some ways to last night's game where you got an interconference matchup between two playoff hopefuls. I think once it's all said and done, I trust Joe Burrow more than I trust Jimmy Garoppolo. I don't trust Zach Taylor more than I trust Kyle Shanahan. The problem is Kyle Shanahan doesn't have Deebo Samuel. And this offense, for whatever reason, just completely shuts down when Deebo Samuel's not in the lineup. So I will take the Cincinnati Bengals in a game that they are favored, San Francisco's favored, -1.5. I think this is somewhat of an upset, and the Bengals win this game. Cincinnati wins this game 24-17. Looking down the road, you got what is probably the game of the day. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the defending champs, at home, hosting the Buffalo Bills. This is also a desperation game for Buffalo because all of a sudden, last week, they're playing to lead the division over the red-hot New England Patriots. A week later, they're playing just to keep their playoff hopes above water. They don't want to fall to 7-6. As it stands right now, Buffalo is the last team in the playoffs in the AFC, which is hard to believe. I had this game, these two teams, matching up in Super Bowl 56. I had Buffalo winning the AFC. I had Tampa winning the NFC. I felt like going into the season, this was going to be the Super Bowl. Now I'm not so confident. We'll see down the road how I feel going into January, going into the playoffs, because I do think both teams will get in. I don't think if Buffalo loses on Sunday, this will be like a crushing blow to their playoff hopes. Maybe I'm too high on the Buccaneers. I think they win this game by double digits because this Bills defense has struggled. I said last week they weren't going to miss Tre'Davious White because the Patriots weren't going to throw it that much. Didn't know the Patriots were going to throw it 3 times, but that's neither here nor there. But going against Tom Brady, going against that receiving core, oh yeah, they're going to miss Tre'Davious White big time. Heck, they might need prime time. They might need Deion Sanders or going back, decades and decades and decades. Might have to go back to the 50s and the 60s to go get Night Train Lane. You didn't know I knew who that was, did you? But you're going to need to get the best corners to cover these Bucs receivers, Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Antonio Brown's still out. That doesn't matter for the Bucs right now. You got Gronk, obviously, and Cameron Brate, who's a great red zone target. I mean, there's just it's receivers galore. It's talent galore. It is weapons galore for the Bucs. And so I think they win this game and get their 10th win of the season, going to 10-3 and win it 34-24. I don't know how Buffalo's defense is going to cover those Tampa receivers with the injury of Tre'Davious White. And Josh Allen, can he come up big Sunday? I don't think so. Keep in mind, Tom Brady has beaten the Buffalo Bills only 32 times in his career. He kind of owns them. Finally, what is my segment right now? It's the last game of the week, my weekly segment.
Bettin Man.
If I were a betting man, I'm looking at this game, the Chicago Bears going to the Green Bay Packers. This is an easy one. Green Bay's favored -12.5. They're favored by more than anybody this week. Usually, I don't even touch these spreads. Like, if you have, say last week you had the Rams and the Jaguars, I'm like, I wouldn't mess with that if I were a betting man. But in this case, you got the Bears. Yes, Justin Fields is making a start. That's a better alternative than Andy Dalton. But Matt Nagy is going to get fired after this season. The Bears are not going to make the playoffs. They're going to Lambeau against a Packers team, which I think today is the best team in football. They're coming in off a bye. Do I trust Matt LaFleur in the playoffs? No. Do I trust Aaron Rodgers in the playoffs? Equally, no. But as Aaron Rodgers told all of America 2 months ago when they played the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field, he owns them. Just like Brady owns the Bills, Rodgers owns the Bears. I mean, you could just look at some of those games. I think he had one where he had like 5 touchdown passes in the first half against the Bears one game. This is what he does. He owns Chicago. So if I were a betting man, absolutely. Green Bay covers the spread easily. I think Aaron Rodgers and these Packers receivers, even without Randall Cobb, who's going to be out for a little while, I think they torch this Bears defense on Sunday Night Football in front of the whole country. If I were a betting man, I'm taking the Packers 38-16 over the Bears. There you go. 38-16 over the Chicago Bears. It ultimately comes down to this, is that they've been off 2 weeks. They're feeling good about themselves. They've been playing great football. And when you look at that signature win, to me, it's the signature win of the whole NFL season. Thursday night, short week, COVID has ravaged your team. Devontae Adams is out and Alan Lazard is out, and your defense is beat up. Zadarius Smith is out and Jair Alexander's out, and your offensive line is beat up. And you go into undefeated Arizona's house and completely outplay them. Yes, I know they had a shot at the goal line with A.J. Green, who didn't turn around. I understand that. But even if he had caught that pass, I would have come in that next day on Friday and said the better team didn't win. Green Bay was the better team in that game. Undermanned. They ran the football well. Aaron Jones, A.J. Dillon, and both guys were big time against these Bears. They won't have any issue. They'll have no problem against this Bears defense, which doesn't have Khalil Mack right now. Justin Fields, I think he's going to be special. I love Justin Fields, but he is a rookie. Maybe he gets Kellen Moore in there next year as his head coach. And if so, look out, because Justin Fields is going to be, maybe in the MVP discussion for all we know, the way Kellen Moore can coach offense. So with that is all the time we have for tonight's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. Catch Carving It Up on Monday, as always, at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right where you're watching right now on Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. If you've been listening to Carving It Up podcasts, we appreciate that as well. You've been listening on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, Anchor, as well as wherever you listen to your podcast. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, be sure to click that big red subscribe button and like, comment, and share if you want, because it helps the channel grow. It helps the show grow exponentially. So have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy some great football. We're going to have a ton to talk about on Monday. I know that for a fact. College football playoffs coming in a few weeks. Christmas, the holidays, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate. It's that time of year, man. It's great football, and it's great holiday season. So have a great weekend, everybody. Stay safe. God bless you all. Peace out.